morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Boris making a fool out of himself again, going to Saudi Arabia. Absolute embarrassment. And those of you who liked my other video I did a few days ago about Biden making phone calls to MBS and UAE leader and Venezuela leader, it was a joke video. I'm going to be doing another one. I'm going to be doing one about basically Boris going to Saudi and meeting MBS. So I'm going to be doing that one. So keep a lookout for that. I might post it tomorrow or the day after, but keep a lookout. But make sure you like and share it, guys, because it's really good for the algorithm. And it's really important you guys do that so it gets sent out there. So secondly, I'm also going to be talking about the Russian economy and the global economy. I'm going to give you the latest updates for that. And I'm going to be showing you how the Western media have got it completely wrong regarding the Russian economy. They've got it completely wrong with that regarding the global economy. And we are looking at some doom and gloom over the next few years. And finally, I'm also going to be talking about Biden as well as China, and I'm going to show you there are some Chinese billionaires who are already taking out their money out of London. They're taking their assets out of UK, they're selling their assets, and they're going to basically take them back home, because what the West has shown by sanctioning all these Russian billionaires in UK, in Europe, that your money is not safe in the West at all. It's not safe from sanctions and it's not safe from the West. So the process has already started. There's already tycoons taking their money out, and today is an example of one massive tycoon taking his money out of London. So I'm going to end with... So as usual, don't forget to like, share, comment, do whatever you can to support the channel. It's really important because of the algorithm. The more people like, the more people get to see it. So I really appreciate it. And if I can also ask you guys for a favor, if you really like the video or you really want to support this channel and you want to see us grow and help us grow, then don't forget you can buy me a coffee or you can join my Patreon. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. So how hilarious is this article? I was literally laughing my head off every word I was reading. So let me go through it quickly with you. Boris returns from Saudi mission without any pledge to boost oil supplies, as ministers insist he did raise human rights, but there were more executed. 3 more were executed during PM's visit. Boris Johnson visited Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia, urging states to boost oil supplies and bringing down prices. There were no immediate announcement that the Gulf states would increase their production in response. The PM insisted he raised human rights during talks with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. So the funny thing was, on the day that Prime Minister Boris went to visit Saudi, there was about 81 people in Saudi that got their heads chopped off, literally heads chopped off. That's the death penalty over there. So the PM went all the way there and came back empty-handed, came back with nothing, zilch. And did he really expect that MBS and the Crown Prince of UAE would basically listen to Boris when they don't even pick up the phone from Biden? So did they really think that they would listen to Boris? I mean, what is Boris thinking? He's just making a fool out of himself. He's just making an embarrassment out of himself. Here he is with the rest of his Western colleagues and the rest of the Western leaders raising his hands up and saying, yeah, let's sanction Putin. Yeah, let's sanction Russia. Yeah, oil sanctions. Yeah, don't stop buying oil from Russia. Yeah. And the next day, he doesn't even have any plan whatsoever. No plan. Puts all of these sanctions in place. Next day he wakes up, he thinks to himself, oh crap, what the hell am I going to do? Where am I going to get this oil from? I got an idea. Let me go to Saudi and let me go to UAE. They're not even picking up Biden's phone call, so I'm going to do one better. I'm going to go and see them and I'm going to persuade them to give me more oil and persuade them to give me more gas. So he jumps on the plane, spends hundreds and thousands of pounds on a private jet, goes, causes all sorts of climate change issues, goes all the way to Saudi, and comes back with nothing. And he says he did raise human rights. Well, what's he gonna do? Say to MBS in front of his face, oh, by the way, we're not happy with your human rights, but we're happy to sell you weapons so you can kill Yemenis. Britain has been arming Saudi Arabia for years, and with their weapons, they've been killing Yemenis. And people are asking, you should raise human rights with the Crown Prince. Okay, I'll raise human rights issues with him. So he goes to the Crown Prince, and can you give me your hand, please? And the Crown Prince, MBS, goes, what do you mean? What do you want my hand for? Can you give me your hand? And he gives Boris his hand, and Boris slaps him on the wrist, and he goes, there you go. You've been a naughty boy. You've been a very naughty boy. Don't do it again. Don't do it again, okay? Don't do any more human rights issues again. So there you go. I think that's what he did. He's absolutely ridiculous. He's come back empty-handed. Didn't even say anything about human rights. Still, Britain will still sell weapons to Saudi Arabia. And not only that, you got Liz Truss as well lying to the British public. Literally lying. And I'm going to show you this clip.
Executed in Saudi Arabia just a few days ago. Is that a regime we should even be negotiating with?
As I say, I don't condone the policies of Saudi Arabia, but we have to be clear that we are facing a serious threat, not just to European security, but to global security in Vladimir Putin and his appalling behaviour. And if we don't make sure that Vladimir Putin loses in Ukraine, the likelihood is that he will want to go further. We have to stop him at all costs. We have to work with all partners around the world. We won't necessarily agree with all those partners on everything, but it is so important that we stop Vladimir Putin. He is the real threat the world faces.
Have you ever seen anything preposterous in your life? Every time she opens her mouth, feels like she's just vomiting out lies, she's vomiting out propaganda, vomiting out trash. Nothing comes out of her mouth which is the truth. And every time she opens her mouth, I just feel like cringing. It's absolutely cringeworthy. I mean, here she is talking about Putin like he's going to take over the world. He never said he's going to take over the world. Europe is not in danger. This is all about Ukraine, and she's talking about Putin's not going to stop in Ukraine. He's going to go further out. Europe is in danger. This is a global crisis. It's going to take over the world. It's like some sort of evil supervillain or something. And not only that, she's lying to the British public. She's saying, "Oh, we have to work with Prince MBS because Putin is a bigger evil than the prince, so we got to work with the prince and stuff." But she doesn't tell you that Britain has been selling arms and weapons to Saudi Arabia for years. They've been working with Saudi Arabia for years. They've been killing all of these Yemenis with British weapons and American weapons. She's not going to tell you that. She's pretending that they're going to work with Saudi now. No. Britain has been selling weapons to Saudi for years. They've been working with Saudi for years, despite all of these human rights issues. Don't believe a word this woman says. Don't believe a word this government says. It's all baloney. Another thing that's baloney I'm going to show you is the Russian ruble. So, do you remember a few weeks ago where you had every single Western paper saying that the Russian ruble has collapsed. Russian ruble has collapsed 30%. Some were saying collapsed 40%. And look at it today. It's gained back everything that it collapsed with. It's come back. The Western papers were frothing in their mouths. They were frothing. They were like, oh, the Russian ruble's going to collapse. The Russian economy is going to collapse. Well, look at it now. Look at it now. I mean, the time when they put the sanctions, it was about 83.90, as you can see from this graph. And the end today is 98.75. And that's about 10%. Or just over 10%. 10% is not 30%, it's not 40%, and it's not something that the ruble is going to collapse with. I mean, you can see the month. So the time when they put all of these sanctions, obviously, yeah, it did raise, but now look, it's stabilizing, and it's going to stabilize further over the next few weeks. And all this crap about newspapers saying, oh, the Russian ruble's about to collapse. Yeah, they're really getting excited. They're frothing in their mouths saying, yeah, all of these sanctions, they're working. Yeah, give them some more sanctions. Yeah, more. Yeah. Can you see what a joke all of these Western reporters are? They're a total joke. They don't know anything about economics. They don't know anything about the world. All they are is spewing out crap given to them by the government. And I was right about many things. I'll show you other things I was right about as well. Russia owes Western banks 120 billion. They won't get it back. So all of these sanctions they're placing on Russia, who do you think is losing? Do you think Russia's losing? No, Russia's not the one that's losing. The Western banks are the ones that are losing. They're losing 120 billion. And there's actually going to be more. There's hundreds of other billions, not even they haven't even discussed, and that's going to come out of the next few weeks. And all of these businesses that are going out of Russia. So you got Russian businesses taking over McDonald's. They're taking over the McDonald's branches. They're taking over the McDonald's IP. They're taking over the McDonald's premises, and the government is helping them. They don't have to worry about IPs. They don't have to worry about giving McDonald's any money. They don't have to worry about that. So all of these companies leaving Russia thinking, yeah, we're doing a good service to the world. Well, let's pack up and leave. They're the ones that are losing. Russia's winning. They're getting a brand new business for free. And they don't have to pay McDonald's anything. They don't have to pay Starbucks. They don't have to pay Burger King. They don't have to pay any of these businesses leaving Russia. So you can see here, Russia's State Duma speaker told Parliament that the Uncle Vanya franchise should replace the shut McDonald's stores. So you see, Russia is not losing. It's all of these Western companies that have spent years investing in Russia, paying for the business, building up the business in Russia, and now they pack up and leave, and Russia takes over the franchise for free. So it's good news for Russia, bad news for these companies who stood up and leave. And are they going to get any money back? No, they're not going to get any money back. And all of their assets, all of their money is going to be frozen by Russia and taken over by these businesses. This gets worse. Russia moves to seize hundreds of planes from foreign owners. So you have all of these planes in Russia which have been leased, which are in Russian airports. They've all been frozen, and Russia's going to happily fly them around for free, not worry about giving them back. They got hundreds of billions pounds worth of planes. They got hundreds of billions pounds worth of assets. You know, Russia is not losing. Anyone that think Russia is losing, they're not. They're making a lot of money right now. They're selling loads of gas. They're selling loads of oil. You know, they're selling commodities, raw materials, and there's still business as usual. And I've had people in my channel who are Russian who are saying everything in Russia is business as usual. Nobody's panicking. Everybody's happy. All of the businesses are moving to China. And I'll show you something else. You can see, look, Chinese smartphones are flying off the shelves in Moscow. So you can see the Chinese industry is going to come in and take over. All of these Western brands leaving Russia is going to be taken over by Chinese brands. So who do you think is winning here? Not the Western brands, I can tell you that right now. It's the Chinese brands who are winning, and Russia's winning as well. I don't know if any of you heard the speech that Putin made today. He mentioned he has had enough of the Western systems, he has had enough of the Western financial systems, and he's had enough of the Western brands. It's going to be a brand new order in Russia where they're going to be focused with their friends, they're going to be focused on China, and they're going to be focused on Central Asia, they're going to be focused on the Middle East, they're going to be focused on Africa. They don't need the West, they don't need America. There's a big world out there, there's a huge world out there. They have India as well with 1.4 billion people. So Russia is not worried. The West thinks, oh, just because they sanction Russia, Russia's going to fall and die. No, no, the West is only 20% of the world's population. You have China, which is rising to be the number one economy, and it's already the number one economy in PPP terms. Then you have India rising as well, and it's got 1.4 billion people to feed, and they need energy, they need gas, they need oil, they need wheat. So you tell me, who's winning, who's losing? The West thinks they're superior. They think they can sanction whichever the country they want, and this country's gonna fall down at their feet and beg them and say, please, please take away the sanctions. I beg you, please. No, Russia is not like that. Russia is not Venezuela. Russia is not Iran, and even those countries still have not, begged America to get rid of the sanctions. In fact, America's the one that's going into Iran and Venezuela to beg them for oil, not the other way around. I also want to mention this. Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe, which means Ukraine feeds Europe. The amount of wheat, grain, corn that it grows, basically it can feed Europe. It also feeds half of Africa and the Middle East as well, and he also sends a lot of agricultural stuff to China. So with the war, all of that's going to stop. And then Russia is also one of the biggest wheat producers and grain producers. They've also got a lot of fertile land. Ukraine has actually got more fertile land because the most of land in Russia is covered with permafrost. So with global warming, things will be better in the future for Russia. But at the moment, Ukraine has got more fertile land. And you've seen the size of Ukraine. It's the largest country in Europe. So now, with the war going on, Russia's going to probably control half of Ukraine by the time that the war ends. Which means Russia's going to own half of Ukraine's commodities, like wheat, grain, all these agricultural goods. But a lot of people don't realize that Ukraine also produces neon. So one of the things that USA and also the island of Taiwan have banned semiconductors to Russia. Russia does not have an issue with high technology goods. They can get it all from China. But the only thing that China could not provide is semiconductors, and we're talking about 5 nanometers, 3 nanometers that Samsung do, TSMC do. China is still not that level yet. The highest level China can do is 28 nanometers, and I believe they're going into 14 nanometers mass production very soon. But the point is, Russia cannot make their own mobile phones. They cannot make their own semiconductors, or they can't even buy semiconductors, which are 5 nanometers and below. However, as most of you know, 80 or 90% of the electrical goods around the world, they only need 28 nanometers and above. They don't need 5 nanometers. The only things that need 5 nanometers is your latest mobile phones. But they got that covered with Chinese phones which are coming on board. And China is building its own semiconductor industry, and within a few years they're going to catch up with America anyway. They're already the highest producers of semiconductors, 28 nanometers. And they soon going to be producing 14 nanometers, and I believe they're testing the 7 nanometers at the moment as well. The SMIC, which is their biggest company, is building plants in Beijing, Shenzhen. So over the next few years, you will see huge amounts of capacity coming out of China, and Russia's going to buy it from them. So there's one other component that the semiconductor industry needs, and that's neon. So if America and the island of Taiwan doesn't give semiconductors to Russia, Russia's going to just turn around and say, you know what, we're not going to give you neon. And the neon is produced in Russia and Ukraine, and it's about 90% of the world's global supply, 90%. So can you imagine if Russia says no, we're not going to supply you guys neon, there's going to be more semiconductor shortages. And we've already had semiconductor shortages over the past few years. So many car companies could not, use their full capacities because they didn't have semiconductors. So there's going to be bigger supply chain issues, and there's going to be bigger squeezes in semiconductors, and Russia will happily supply neon to China, and China will gladly take it. So between China and Russia, they're going to be covering most of the world's commodities and raw materials that the world needs. You know, between Russia and China, China already controls most of the world's rare earth minerals, lithium, and other minerals, and Russia controls neon and nickel and other products as well. And between China and Russia, they're pretty much self-sufficient. They don't need any more raw materials. Between them, they've got enough. And China's got enough mines in Africa as well. And same with Russia. Russia's got mines in Africa, in Middle East. You know, between them, they've covered all of the raw materials. It's the West that needs the raw materials. So if Russia turns around tomorrow and says no to neon, you know, what's TSMC going to do? What America going to do? They're going to be missing neon, which is an important material for lasers in the semiconductor machines. So they haven't really thought about these things. They haven't thought about these sanctions. They're happy to sit in a room, all of these politicians raise their hand up and say, yeah, let's sanction Russia here, let's sanction Russia there. There's no person in the room who's actually a thinker and said, hang on a second, you can't do this. If you do this, this is going to happen, or these are the consequences. There was nobody there. All of them were sitting in a room. They're all trying to outdo each other. Who's going to give Russia the biggest sanctions? They're all, standing up. No, my sanctions are bigger than yours. No, my sanctions are bigger than yours. Yeah. No, my sanctions are bigger than yours. Do you know what I mean? So as many of you would know, the Bank of England has increased interest rates, and this basically coincided with the Fed's increase in interest rate as well. And not a lot of people realize this, but look at this. Stagnation on deck. Atlanta Fed cuts Q1 GDP to 0%, which means they're forecasting America's growth to be 0% in Q1 2022. And you guys know what it means to have growth of 0%. This means recession. And a lot of these papers are not going to report this. I found this on the Atlanta Fed cuts, which is one of the most reliable forecasts for America's GDP growth. And no paper, not even the Wall Street Journal, is going to post this because they don't want to scare the American people. They don't want people to know there's going to be growth of 0% this quarter, in the first quarter. People are going to start panicking. They're going to be like, oh, get rid of these sanctions on Russia right now. We don't want any part of this. We'd rather be able to feed our families, be warm at night, cook gas, cook with oil, drive around with cheap oil. We don't care about Ukraine. We don't care about Russia. That's what they're going to say. But a lot of papers are not going to report this. You'll find this in Atlanta Fed cuts, and this is one of the few sources that would tell you the truth. So this means a recession is coming. The Fed have got no clue. The Bank of England have got no clue whatsoever. This is going to be counterproductive, completely counterproductive, because you have supply chain issues all across the world. And increasing the interest rate is not going to help. It's not going to help at all. You had 0% interest in America, and even in the UK it was really, really low for a number of years. So this means a lot of people have been taking out loans, a lot of people have been taking out mortgages, and suddenly they'll find that they've got a spike in their mortgage payments and they've got a spike in their loan payments. And with the cost of inflation, you got the cost of living, you got the cost of gas bills, even the taxes have increased. People don't have that kind of money anymore. Now they're going to have to pay extra money on their mortgages. Now they have to pay extra money on their loans. They've been getting away with cheap loans all of these years, and they've been getting away with cheap mortgages all of these years. And suddenly, now, they're going to pay above the limit. They're going to pay above what they can afford. You will see a lot of people suffering. A lot of people, they're going to be losing their houses. They're going to be default. They're going to be bankruptcies. And you're going to see another Lehman Brothers coming up very, very soon if they don't sort this out. And if you look at the history of every time they've raised interest rates, they've tried to raise it in 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20, and there was a huge market crash around 20 to 25%, and they put the rates back to zero again. Obviously they had the COVID as well, but the point is they've tried to raise rates in the past and they had failed. And the reason they failed because people are going beyond their means. Businesses are going beyond their means. Businesses have been borrowing so much money for years. It's part of this capitalist system that the Americans have, that the British have, that the West have. Borrow, 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 borrow. And then when it comes to paying back with higher interest, they can't do it. And what happens when you have to pay back with higher interest? You make less money, you make less profits, and then you got all of these supply chain issues as well to deal with. All of your raw materials are more expensive. All of your petrol is more expensive. And when your petrol is more expensive, you know, you have to pay for transport. Your transport costs are more expensive. Everything goes up. Everything. And then you got the gas prices as well, which means gas prices have gone up. Fertilizer prices have gone up. Food prices have gone up. You know, and now people have to pay more out of their pocket to pay for the high interest rates. The system is going to collapse very soon. It's going to be worse than the 2008 collapse. Much, much worse. The West system has not recovered from the 2008. And do you know why? Because the interest rate has been literally at zero since 2008. They tried to raise it a few times, but they failed and they kept going back down. The Fed and the Bank of England do not have the flexibility of increasing interest rates. They can't. Why have they had low interest rates for all of these years? Because they can't raise it. If they raise it, they know the market's going to collapse, or the share prices are going to collapse, businesses are going to collapse, people are going to go bankrupt, people are going to lose their homes. That's what's going to happen. And on that note, guys, I'm going to leave it for today. Let me know what you think, and if you can like, share, subscribe, do what you can to support the channels. Make sure you can still see that you're subscribed, because a lot of my followers are saying that YouTube has unsubscribed them for some reason. So make sure you're still subscribed, make sure you like, make sure you comment. It helps with the algorithm. And if you really want to support me, really want to support the channel and help me grow, you're welcome to buy me a coffee or join my Patreon. And don't forget to keep an eye out for that funny video I made about Boris on his trip to Saudi Arabia and UAE. Keep an eye out for that. It's going to be very, very funny. So on that note, I'll see you guys soon and see you in the next video.